For 3 months, a luxurious mansion hid the disturbing silence of 2 forgotten children. When the father returns, expecting hugs and joy, he finds a cold emptiness and eyes faded with fear. Behind locked doors, the truth is revealed with a devastating whisper. She said no one would believe us. Now a broken man must face the monster he himself let in and fight for redemption.
If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The sun was setting over Regent Street as Marcus Forrester, 45, disembarked from his helicopter at the Matarazzo Tower heliport. His face, tanned from days spent in meetings in Dubai, contrasted sharply with his impeccably tailored suit. The real estate magnate was known for transforming abandoned plots into luxury residential complexes, and his fortune only grew with each new venture. He strode through the lobby with firm steps, greeting security guards and receptionists with the familiarity of someone who knew every name. Despite the fatigue of the journey, his eyes sparkled with anticipation. After 3 months away, he was returning home to his new wife, Catherine, and his daughters, Louisa and Eleanor. "Mr. Forrester, your driver is waiting," the receptionist informed him with a cordial smile. "Thank you, Penny. And how is your son?" As his asthma improved, the woman smiled, surprised he remembered. "Yes, sir. The medication you helped us get made all the difference." This was Marcus Forrester, a man who, despite his fortune and power, never forgot the people around him. Perhaps that's why he would never suspect what awaited him at his mansion in Kensington. In the car, as it traversed the city, Marcus mentally reviewed the past 3 months. He had closed billion-dollar deals, expanded his empire into the Middle East, but none of it compared to the eagerness of seeing his daughters again. Louisa, at 10, was his chess companion. Eleanor, 7, charmed him with her talent for the piano. Ever since he lost Anne, his first wife, in a tragic car accident 2 years ago, the girls had become the center of his universe. "We'll be there in 20 minutes, Mr. Forrester," the driver informed him, interrupting his thoughts. Marcus nodded, checking his phone. There was a message from Catherine. "We're eagerly waiting, my love. The girls miss you." A soft smile appeared on his lips. Catherine had entered his life like a hurricane. 28 years old, beautiful, intelligent, with an MBA in finance and a promising career in the financial market. Their meeting at a charity event a year ago had been like a breath of life after months of mourning. The wedding, held 6 months later, was discreet but elegant. The girls seemed to have adapted well to their new stepmother, who proved to be attentive and affectionate. As the car sped through the streets of London, Marcus didn't notice the glances exchanged between his driver, Anthony, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Zelma, who had sent a discreet message. Something was wrong at the Forrester mansion, but no one dared to tell the boss. The mansion's gate opened automatically. The impeccable garden, with its royal palms and colorful bromeliads, looked as perfect as ever. The central fountain spouted crystal-clear water, illuminated by bluish lights. Everything seemed normal, except for the silence. Marcus got out of the car, breathing in the London night air deeply. Anthony removed the luggage from the boot, hesitantly. "Mr. Forrester, perhaps you should know that ... double quotes," but he was interrupted by the main door opening, revealing Catherine. She was stunning in an emerald green dress that accentuated her light eyes. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. "My love, finally," she exclaimed, throwing herself into her husband's arms. Marcus embraced her, inhaling the familiar jasmine scent. For a second, he forgot the unease he had felt upon noticing the silence of the house. "Where are the girls?" he asked, looking over Catherine's shoulder. She pulled away, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture Marcus already knew as a sign of nervousness. "They're asleep, darling. You know how it is, school routine. I didn't want to wake them so late." Marcus frowned, checking his watch. It was only 8:30 p.m. That early. They always waited for me, no matter the hour. Catherine linked her arm in his, guiding him into the house. "We changed the routine a bit while you were away. More discipline, strict schedules. You always said you wanted them to have a rigorous education." The mansion, with its 1,500 square meters, seemed larger and colder than Marcus remembered. The contemporary art on the walls, the expensive sculptures in the corners, the Italian leather sofas, everything was impeccable, but something was different. Eleanor's scattered toys were missing, as were Louisa's perpetually open books. "Is Mrs. Zelma still here?" he asked, noticing the absence of the housekeeper, who always greeted him with a hot coffee after his trips. "Oh, she's retired too. I reorganized the staff, you know." More efficiency, less excessive familiarity. Something in Catherine's tone bothered him, but Marcus was too tired to question it. He accepted the whiskey she offered him and sat on the main living room sofa. "How were the meetings in Dubai?" Catherine asked, sitting beside him, so close he could feel the warmth of her skin. "Productive. We closed the partnership with the Al Fayed Group. We're going to build a residential and commercial complex in Canary Wharf." "Wonderful," she exclaimed, kissing him lightly on the lips. "You're brilliant, Marcus. Everyone says so." He smiled, but his eyes remained restless, scanning the room. "Have the girls been behaving well? How are they doing at school?" For an instant, so brief that Marcus would later doubt he'd seen it, something dark passed through Catherine's eyes. "Great." Louisa had some adaptation difficulties at the new school, but nothing a little discipline couldn't solve. New school? But they loved St. Monica's school. Catherine sighed, as if explaining something to a child. "Darling, we talked about this before you left. St. Paul's International School offers a far superior bilingual curriculum. Remember?" Marcus frowned. He didn't remember that conversation, but the last few days before the trip had been chaotic, with endless meetings and last-minute preparations. "Of course, I remember now," he lied, not wanting to start an argument on his first night home. Catherine smiled, satisfied, and rose with the grace of a ballerina. "I'll prepare a bath for you. You must be exhausted from the journey." As she ascended the stairs, Marcus remained seated, observing the room. His eyes fell upon a photo frame on the shelf, him with the girls on a beach, wide smiles, hair blowing in the wind. The photo had been taken before he met Catherine. Beside it, a new one. Him, Catherine, and the girls at their wedding ceremony. Something in Louisa's and Eleanor's eyes disturbed him. The usual sparkle was absent. He decided that despite the late hour, he needed to see his daughters. He went up the stairs silently, ignoring the sound of the shower coming from the master suite. The hallway leading to the girls' rooms was dark. He approached Louisa's door and turned the doorknob. It was locked. Confused, he tried Eleanor's bedroom door, also locked. Since when did his daughter's bedroom doors have keys? "The girls have been having nightmares," Catherine said, appearing in the hallway, wrapped in a silk robe. "The therapist suggested we lock them in at night so they'd feel safe." "Therapist? What therapist?" "Dr. Campbell, an excellent child psychologist. You were so busy before your trip that I took care of everything. They were very upset after their mother's passing, you know." Marcus nodded slowly. a sense of unease growing in his chest. "May I see the keys?" Catherine hesitated for an instant, but then smiled. "Of course, they're on my bedside table. But it would be better not to wake them now. Tomorrow you'll have all day with them." Marcus reluctantly agreed. The exhaustion of the journey was beginning to weigh on his shoulders. He followed Catherine to the master suite, where a hot bath awaited him. As he undressed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was profoundly wrong in his home. But tiredness won out, and he soon fell asleep, not noticing that Catherine had left the room, taking the keys to the girls' bedrooms with her. Morning arrived with the chirping of birds in the garden. Marcus woke to find his side of the bed empty. Catherine had already risen. He checked the clock, 7:30 a.m. He stretched, eager to finally see his daughters. He dressed quickly and went downstairs, following the aroma of fresh coffee. In spacious, modern kitchen, Catherine was speaking in a low voice with a woman Marcus didn't recognize. Upon seeing him, both fell silent abruptly. "Good morning, darling." Catherine smiled, approaching to kiss him. "This is Martha, our new housekeeper." Marcus frowned, shaking the middle-aged woman's hand with a severe expression. "What happened to Mrs. Zelmer?" "Retirement," Catherine replied promptly. "After so long serving the family, I thought she deserved a rest. I arranged a good pension for her." Something about the explanation sounded false. But Marcus was more concerned about his daughters. Are the girls awake yet? An uncomfortable silence hung in the air. Catherine and Martha exchanged quick glances. "They're having breakfast in their room," Catherine finally replied. "It's Saturday today. I let them be more at ease. Why don't you have your coffee while I get the girls ready to see you? They're a little agitated about your return." Before he could protest, Catherine had already left the kitchen. Marcus sat at the table, watching Martha prepare his coffee in silence. The woman avoided his gaze. "How long have you worked here, Martha?" he asked, trying to break the ice. 2 months, sir," she replied dryly. "And how are my daughters? Have they adapted well to the new school?" Martha hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she served the coffee. "It's not for me to comment, sir. Mrs. Forrester personally oversees the girls' education." Something in Martha's tone alerted Marcus. Before he could press further, the doorbell rang. Moments later, Anthony, the driver, entered the kitchen. "Good morning, Mr. Forrester. Mrs. Catherine asked me to inform you that the car is ready to take you to the office. There's an urgent meeting with the shareholders." Marcus frowned. "Meeting? I'm not aware of any meeting. And I'm not going anywhere before I see my daughters." Anthony looked uncomfortable. "Sir, Dr. Maxwell called personally. He said it's about the land acquisition in East London." The mention of the project Marcus had been negotiating for months made him hesitate. It was a multi-million-pound deal that could collapse if not finalized correctly. "Tell them I'll be there in an hour," he finally decided. "But first, I'm seeing my daughters." He went upstairs, determined. But in the hallway, he found Catherine leaving the girls' room, closing the door behind her. "They're getting ready for ballet class," she said before he could ask. "They're running late. You can see them when you get back from the office. Ballet class on a Saturday. The private teacher comes on Saturdays. It was the only time I could get. Spots at the Royal Ballet School are highly sought after." Marcus took a deep breath, suppressing his frustration. "Catherine, these are my daughters. I've been away for 3 months. I want to see them now." Something in Catherine's gaze hardened, but then her expression softened. "Of course, my love. I'm just trying to maintain their routine. You know how children need stability." She opened the door, and Marcus finally saw his daughters. They were sitting on Louisa's bed, dressed in pink leotards and tulle skirts. Upon seeing him, their eyes widened, but they didn't run to hug him as he expected. "Daddy's back, girls," Catherine announced with a sweet voice that didn't match the tension in her shoulders. "Come, give him a hug." The girls approached slowly. Louisa, usually so talkative, seemed a shadow of her former self. Her arms, normally adorned with colorful bracelets, were bare and strangely pale. Eleanor, his little pianist, kept her hands hidden behind her back. Marcus knelt, opening his arms. They hugged him mechanically, as if fulfilling an obligation. He felt his heart clench. "I missed you so much," he said, pulling back to look at them better. That's when he noticed Louisa had lost weight, her previously chubby cheeks now hollow. Eleanor's hair, once long and shiny, was short and lifeless. "What happened to your hair, Ellie?" he asked, running his hand through his youngest daughter's short strands. Before the girl could answer, Catherine intervened. "Headless at school, we had to cut it, didn't we, Eleanor?" The girl nodded, looking at the floor. "And, are you enjoying the new school, the ballet teacher?" Silence. The two girls quickly looked at Catherine, who maintained a fixed smile on her face. "They love it, don't they, girls?" She answered for them. "Now we need to hurry. Miss Renata doesn't tolerate tardiness." "I've cancelled all my meetings for today," Marcus lied, staring at Catherine. "I'm coming with you to ballet class." A flash of panic crossed Catherine's eyes, but she recovered quickly. "How wonderful. The girls will love it, won't you, darlings?" Louisa and Eleanor nodded mechanically. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Something was very wrong with his daughters. On the way out, while Catherine helped the girls smooth with their ballet shoes, Marcus pulled Anthony aside. "What's going on in this house?" he asked in a low, urgent voice. The driver, who had served the family for over 10 years, hesitated. He looked around, making sure they were alone. "Mr. Forrester, ever since you left, Mrs. Catherine changed. She fired almost all the old staff. Mrs. Zelma was sent away after questioning." "Why, the girls weren't going to school anymore." "What do you mean they weren't going to school anymore?" "Mrs. Catherine said they were having lessons at home, with private tutors." But Anthony lowered his voice even further. "I never saw any teacher enter this house, and the girls rarely leave their room." Marcus felt his blood run cold. Before he could ask more questions, Catherine appeared with the girls. "We're ready," she announced cheerfully. "Let's take my car, it's more spacious," throughout the drive to the supposed dance academy. Marcus observed his daughters in the rearview mirror. Sitting in the back seat, they kept their eyes fixed on their own hands. Not once did they look out the window, something they always loved to do. Catherine talked incessantly about the girls' progress, about how Louisa was excelling in math and Eleanor in literature. "I thought Eleanor liked music more," Marcus commented. "Oh, she still plays piano, but we found new talents, didn't we, darling?" Eleanor merely nodded, without looking up. They arrived at a modern building in the Notting Hill neighborhood. "Art Steps Academy," read the facade. Catherine asked Marcus to wait in the car. "It's academy policy, only one chaperone per student. Parents usually distract the children." Marcus reluctantly agreed. He watched Catherine lead the girls into the building. As soon as they disappeared, he got out of the car and followed them. At the reception desk, a young woman was consulting the computer. "Good morning. My wife just entered with our daughters, Louisa and Eleanor Forrester. I'm their father." The receptionist frowned, confused. "Forrester. We don't have any students with that surname. There must be some mistake. They just walked in. 2 girls, 10 and 7 years old, with a tall woman, dark hair." "Sir, I can check the system, but double quotes at that moment. Marcus saw through the glass door, Catherine returning with the girls, quickly getting into the car. "Excuse me," he said, hurrying out. When he reached the car park, Catherine was reversing the vehicle. Marcus ran, managing to open the passenger door before she accelerated. "What's going on?" he demanded, getting into the car. "They're not enrolled in this academy." Catherine kept her eyes on the road, her hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. "There was a misunderstanding with the enrollment. We're going to another academy." "No, we're not. We're going home right now." The drive back was made in sepulchral silence. Catherine drove with her lips pressed into a thin line. The girls, in the back seat, seemed even smaller, huddled in fear. Upon arriving at the mansion, Marcus held Catherine's arm before she could get out of the car. "The girls are staying with me. Go to your room and wait for me there." Something dangerous sparked in Catherine's eyes, but she nodded and got out of the car. Marcus turned to his daughters. "Let's go for a drive, just the three of us. How about some ice cream?" It was the first time since his arrival that he saw a flicker of life in their eyes. He drove to an ice cream parlor at Westfield, London, a place the girls had always loved. Sitting at a secluded table with untouched ice cream sundaes in front of them, Marcus looked into his daughter's eyes. "What happened while I was away?" Louisa and Eleanor exchanged frightened glances. Finally, Louisa spoke, her voice almost a whisper. She said, "If we told you, you wouldn't believe us." Marcus felt his heart break. He took his daughter's hands in his. "I will always believe you. Always. You can tell me everything." Eleanor began to cry silently. Louisa, gathering courage, pulled up her sleeve, revealing purple and yellowish bruises on her arm. "That," she said, "we were naughty. Deserve food. That, ... Her voice faltered. "That you didn't love us anymore. That you had a new family now." Marcus felt a wave of nausea and fury. He took a deep breath, controlling himself so as not to frighten the girls even more. "That's not true. I love you more than anything in the world. And I will protect you. Always." He hugged both of them tightly, feeling their fragile bodies tremble against his. In that moment, he swore to himself that Catherine would pay for every mark, for every tear, for every day of suffering she had inflicted upon his daughters. As he left the ice cream parlor, with Louisa and Eleanor holding his hands as if he were a lifeline in a stormy ocean, Marcus made a call. "Felicity, this is Marcus Forrester. I need your help. It's about my daughters." Felicity Carter parked her worn Vauxhall Corsa in front of the imposing Forrester Mansion in Kensington. At 42, with 15 years dedicated to the London Child Protection Services, few things still surprised her. However, Marcus Forrester's desperate call the previous afternoon had put her on high alert. She knew the businessman from newspaper and magazine reports, one of London's wealthiest men, always photographed at charity events. She never imagined he would seek her out one day. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Robert, her colleague who accompanied her. "Dealing with powerful people always causes trouble." Felicia adjusted the severe bun in her graying hair, looking firmly at the mansion. "I've been in this job too long to be intimidated by luxurious facades, Robert. If there are children suffering in there, I don't care if their father owns half of London." They rang the intercom. They were greeted by Anthony, the driver, who led them through a side path, avoiding the main entrance. "Mr. Forrester requested discretion," he explained, guiding them to an annex at the back of the property. "Mrs. Catherine cannot know you are here." In the small guest house, Marcus awaited them with his daughters. The girls were sitting on a sofa, sharing a blanket despite the afternoon heat. Their frightened looks made Felicity's experienced heart clench. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said, shaking the visitor's hands. He seemed to have aged 10 years since the day before. "These are Louisa and Eleanor." Felicity approached slowly, kneeling in front of the girls. "Hello, my name is Felicity. I'm here to help you." Louisa, the elder, looked suspiciously at her father. "Is she Auntie Kat's friend?" "No, darling. Felicity works helping children. We can trust her." Over the next 2 hours, in a delicate and patient conversation, Felicity uncovered the nightmare the girls had lived through in the past 3 months. Locked in their room for days, fed minimal portions, prevented from going to school or contacting friends. Catherine kept them isolated from the world, manipulating them with threats and punishments. She claimed their father had ordered a special treatment to make them proper girls. "She threw my books away," Louisa recounted, tears streaming down her thin face. "She said I read bad things that made me disobedient, and my piano," Marcus asked, clenching his fists. "She said it was donated to children who deserved it," Eleanor replied in a low voice. "Because I played very badly and bothered everyone," while Robert documented the testimonies indiscreetly. Photographed the marks on the girls' arms and legs. Felicity spoke privately with Marcus. "We need to act quickly, Mr. Forrester. Your daughters show clear signs of abuse and neglect. They are malnourished and traumatized. The first step is to ensure their immediate safety." "I'm taking them to a hotel right now," Marcus decided. "That could complicate the legal situation," Felicity warned. "Your wife could claim kidnapping. The best course would be to obtain a protective order and temporary custody through the courts. How long would that take? With the evidence we have and your influence, perhaps 2 or 3 days." Marcus shook his head, categorical. "I won't leave my daughters for another minute under the same roof as that woman." "There's another possibility," Felicity suggested after a moment's thought. "A temporary shelter specializing in domestic violence cases. It's discreet, safe, and legally recognized by the protection system. The girls would be under professional supervision while we handle the legal aspects." "A shelter?" Marcus's voice faltered. "My daughters in a public shelter?" Felicity smiled gently but firmly. "Mr. Forrester, Hope House is run by a respected NGO with psychologists, doctors, and educators. It's not an orphanage, it's a temporary refuge, and believe me, at the moment, it's the safest place for your daughters." After much reluctance, Marcus agreed. While the girls gathered some clothes and personal belongings, he called his lawyer, Dr. Maxwell. "Maxwell, I need you here now. Emergency situation." "No, it's not business. It's personal." Anthony was tasked with distracting Catherine, informing her that Marcus had been urgently called to the office due to a crisis with foreign investors. Meanwhile, Felicity and Robert discreetly led the girls to the car, avoiding the security cameras. "Is Daddy coming with us?" Eleanor asked, clutching the only toy she'd managed to find, a small, worn teddy bear hidden under the mattress. "Not immediately, darling," Felicity explained sweetly. "Your father has some important things to sort out, but he'll visit you every day, won't he, Mr. Forrester?" Marcus knelt, hugging his daughters tightly. "Every day, I promise. And soon we'll be together again, in a new house. Just the 3 of us." "Auntie Kat will be angry," Louisa whispered, looking nervously at the mansion. "Don't you worry about her. She'll never hurt you again." As Felicity's car left the property via the service entrance, Marcus felt a mix of relief and anguish. His daughters would be safe, but the thought of them in a shelter, away from him, was almost unbearable. However, there was no time for lamentations. He had a battle ahead. Dr. Maxwell arrived half an hour later, carrying his leather briefcase and a worried expression. At 60, with greying hair and thick-rimmed glasses. He was one of London's most respected lawyers, specializing in corporate, not family, law. But his loyalty to Marcus stemmed from decades of friendship. "What's this all about, Marcus? Your message sounded like someone had died." In his upstairs study, Marcus recounted everything: Catherine's strange behavior, the locked doors, the discovery of the abuse against the girls. As he spoke, his voice alternated between contained fury and despair. "I need custody of my daughters, Maxwell, and I want Catherine away from them forever." The lawyer adjusted his glasses, pensive. "We have good chances with custody, especially with the London Child Protection Services reports. But we need to be strategic. Catherine will certainly fight, and she might play dirty." "What kind of person does that to defenseless children?" Marcus asked, more to himself than to his friend. "Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the first case I've seen. Some people transform when they gain power over others." They were interrupted by insistent knocking at the door. Catherine entered without waiting for a response, her eyes flashing with rage. "Where are the girls?" she demanded, looking accusingly at Marcus and Maxwell. "Anthony told me you were at the office, but your assistant revealed there's no meeting today." "They're safe," Marcus replied coldly. "Away from you." Catherine's perfect face contorted into an expression Marcus had never seen. For an instant, all the mask of beauty and refinement disappeared, revealing something dark and dangerous. "You can't just take my stepdaughters like that. I'm their stepmother. I have legal rights." "Rights?" Marcus stood up, confronting her. "What rights do you have after locking them up, depriving them of food, education, any human contact, of physically and emotionally abusing them?" Catherine recoiled as if she'd been slapped. Her expression changed rapidly, shifting from rage to something more calculated. "I don't know what you're talking about. I cared for those girls as if they were my own daughters. If they're making up stories, it's because they've always been problematic since their mother's death. You yourself commented on that." "Don't try to twist the situation," Dr. Maxwell intervened. "We have documented evidence. The London Child Protection Services are involved." The mention of the London Child Protection Services made Catherine blanched. For a moment, she seemed genuinely frightened, but she quickly regained her composure, adjusting her hair with a studied gesture. "I think we all need to calm down," she said, her voice now mellifluous. "Marcus, darling, you're tired from your trip after you've rested. There's nothing to talk about. I want you out of this house by the end of the day." Catherine laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the study. "This is my house too, legally. Or did you forget you added my name to the deed after the wedding?" Marcus froze. It was true. In a romantic gesture, he had transferred half the property into Catherine's name as a wedding gift. "That can be resolved in the divorce," Dr. Maxwell assured him, noticing the panic on his friend's face. "Divorce?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "Don't be hasty, Marcus. Think of the scandal, what the press would say. Billionaire accuses young wife of mistreating stepdaughters. Your Chinese investors would love that headline, wouldn't they?" The veiled threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. Marcus knew the real estate market well. Reputation was everything. A family scandal could scare away conservative investors. "I don't care about headlines," he declared, even though he knew it wasn't entirely true. "I only care about my daughters." How touching, Catherine sneered. The dedicated father who spent 3 months on the other side of the world while his daughters were here. I'm sure the judges would love to hear how you completely delegated their upbringing to me. Double quotes before Marcus could respond. Dr. Maxwell intervened again. Mrs. Forrester, I suggest you seek legal representation. This conversation is leading nowhere. Catherine stared at the two men for a long moment. Finally, she shrugged with studied elegance. As you wish. But know this, Marcus, I won't give up easily on what's mine. With these words, she left the study, closing the door with unnecessary force. The silence that followed was interrupted by Marcus's phone. It was Felicity, informing him that the girls had arrived safely at Hope House. A doctor was already examining them, and the institution's psychologist was prepared to see them. They're scared, but feeling safe now, Felicity assured him. They're asking for you. Tell them I'll be there later today. And ... Thank you, Felicity. I don't know how to thank you for what you're doing. After hanging up, Marcus faced his loyal friend. What are our next steps? Dr. Maxwell opened his briefcase, taking out several forms. We'll request a protective order immediately. With the London Child Protection Services report and the girls' testimonies, we have good chances. Simultaneously, we'll file for contentious divorce, alleging cruelty and dishonorable conduct, and regarding custody. Provisionally, the girls will remain in state custody at the institution where they are now. But with your clean record and the evidence against Catherine, we'll secure permanent custody quickly. Marcus nodded, determined. Do whatever it takes, Maxwell. Cost is not an issue. While the lawyer made calls, Marcus walked to the window, observing the imposing garden that had once been the stage for his daughter's games and laughter. On the horizon, the London sky began to tinge with orange and red, announcing the end of one day and the beginning of a battle that promised to be long and painful. That night, visiting his daughters at the shelter, Marcus found a simple but welcoming place. Hope House operated in an old restored mansion in the Greenwich Borough, with small but comfortable rooms, a well-equipped library, and a garden with swings and slides. Louisa and Eleanor awaited him in the visiting room, already dressed in clean pajamas and with their hair damp from their bath. They seemed less tense, but still scared. Do you like it here? He asked, sitting between them on the worn sofa. There are books, Louisa replied, a small smile forming on her lips. Auntie Felicitas said I can read them all. And there's a piano, Eleanor added shyly. Old, but it works. The lady said I can play after dinner. Marcus felt tears threaten to fall, but he controlled himself. He needed to be strong for them. Soon we'll go home. A new house, where you'll have lots of books and a brand new piano. Will Auntie Cart live there too? Eleanor asked, concern evident in her childish voice. No, darling, never again. I promise. As he hugged his daughters, Marcus didn't notice Catherine outside Hope House, observing the building from inside her luxury car. Her eyes, cold as ice, fixed on the lit windows, calculating her next move. Beside her, a man in a dark suit took notes. I want everything on this place, he ordered. Every employee, every weakness, every detail. And most importantly, I want everything on this Felicity Carter. Everyone has a weak spot. Find hers. The man nodded silently, putting the notepad into the inner pocket of his jacket. Catherine started the car, a cruel smile forming on her perfect lips. This isn't over, Marcus. Not by a long shot. Hope House slowly awoke under the soft light of the London morning. In the simple dining hall, decorated with colorful drawings made by the children, Louisa and Eleanor, ate breakfast in silence. They hadn't fully adapted to the shelter's routine yet, but the welcoming environment was beginning to melt the ice of fear that had held them captive for so long. "Do you think Daddy's coming today?" Eleanor asked, pushing her buttered bread around her plate without actually eating it. Louisa, assuming the role of older sister, tidied Eleanor's short hair. "Of course he promised. Remember." At the next table, Felicity observed the two with professional attention. In 15 years of working for the London Child Protection Services, she had developed a sixth sense for detecting childhood traumas. Marcus Forrester's daughters showed classic signs of psychological abuse, social withdrawal, fear of adults, food insecurity. But there was something more, something that intrigued her. Her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Robert. "Emergency. Call urgently." Stepping away into the corridor, Felicity dialed her colleague's number. "What happened?" "We received a summons from the children's court," Robert informed her, his voice tense. "Catherine Forrester is suing us for illegal removal of the children. She claims you didn't follow proper protocol and acted out of personal interest. That's absurd. We have all the documentation, the photos, the testimonies." She hired Martin Thorne. Felicity felt her stomach sink. Martin Thorne was known in legal circles as the rich man's lawyer, a specialist in family law. He had a reputation for being ruthless, manipulative, and extremely efficient. He rarely lost a case, no matter the methods he had to use. "This changes everything," Robert continued. "Thorne is alleging you have a history of excesses in your interventions. He's digging up old cases to create a profile of you as radical and biased." "Old cases? Like what?" "The Smith case from 2019. When you confronted that agribusiness entrepreneur." Felicity closed her eyes, remembering. She had reported a powerful farmer for exploiting child labor on his properties. The case ended up being dismissed for lack of evidence after witnesses mysteriously changed their testimonies, a blemish on her professional record that had always bothered her. "There's more," Robert said, hesitantly. "Thorne is suggesting that you have a relationship with Marcus Forrester." "What?" "Someone handed over photos of you entering his office last year." Felicity let out an incredulous laugh. "For the consultation on the housing project in East London. It was a public meeting with 10 people present." "I know. But Thorne is manipulating the narrative. He's turning legitimate child protection work into a conspiracy by a rich man and his supposed lover to take children away from an innocent stepmother." Felicity took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. The preliminary hearing. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thorne requested extreme urgency, claiming irreparable damage to the emotional development of the minors. "The wretched hypocrite," Felicity murmured. "Notify Marcus and Dr. Maxwell. We need to prepare." As she hung up, she noticed Louisa standing at the corridor door, her large eyes fixed on Felicity. "We're going to have to go back to her, aren't we?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. Felicity knelt, getting down to the child's level. "No, darling, never again. It's a promise." But as she hugged Louisa, she couldn't help but feel a knot of worry. She knew the system well, slow, bureaucratic, and easily manipulated by those with money and power. Catherine had gone on the attack, and the battle would be much harder than she had imagined. In the luxurious offices of Thorne and Associates, on the 32nd floor of a skyscraper in the city, Catherine Forrester examined the documents Martin Thorne presented to her. Dressed in an elegant black ensemble that highlighted her beauty, she seemed the personification of the dedicated and wronged wife. "They made several procedural errors," Thorne explained. "A 50-year-old man with perfectly cut, graying hair, and a suit that costs more than Felicity's annual salary. The removal of the girls did not follow proper protocol. There was no prior psychological evaluation, nor any attempt at family mediation. We have good chances of reversing this quickly. Accusations.
And what about the
Cather
dot?
asked, feigning vulnerability. Pure defamation, Thorne replied with a confident smile. Your word against theirs. Children are easily influenced, especially by a father seeking revenge against his new wife. We will argue that you were merely implementing necessary discipline for girls who, after all, lost their mother and never received adequate boundaries. Catherine smiled, satisfied. Perfect. And what about that meddling social worker? Felicity Carter has an interesting history. Thorne opened a folder with photos and reports. Divorced, several controversial cases, overly dedicated to her work, and most importantly, a private meeting with your husband a year ago. An affair? Catherine's eyes gleamed with malice. We don't need to prove it. Simply suggesting the possibility of a conflict of interest is enough to discredit her. Catherine stood up, walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of London. Below, the city stretched out, a labyrinth of power and money that she had masterfully navigated since adolescence. We need to be quick, Martin. Marcus may be a sentimental fool, but he's shrewd with business. If he has time, he'll shield his companies and assets. Thorne closed the folder. I managed to move the preliminary hearing forward to tomorrow. I have a good relationship with Judge Alistair. Relationship? Catherine raised an eyebrow. Professional, mealy, Thorne smiled. But he tends to favor family stability and presumption of innocence. Exactly what we need. Excellent. Catherine sat back down. I want temporary custody of the girls and full access to Marcus's accounts and companies. If he wants war, I'll show him what happens when you mess with me. Let's take it easy, Mrs. Forrester, Thorne advised. First, we get the girls back. Then, we negotiate the separation agreement on our terms. Catherine agreed, impatient. She wouldn't tell Thorne that her interest in her stepdaughters had less to do with maternal affection and more with the fortune they would one day inherit. The girls were her insurance policy, her permanent access to the Forrester empire. She wouldn't let them escape easily. Marcus paced back and forth in the meeting room of Maxwell's office. They had spent the entire morning reviewing strategies for the next day's hearing. This is madness, he exclaimed, running his hands through his disheveled hair. How can she even try to regain custody after what she did? Maxwell sighed, adjusting his glasses. Unfortunately, the system doesn't always work as it should. Thorne is a specialist in distorting facts and creating alternative narratives, and Catherine has an impeccable public image, and my daughters. Does anyone think of them? The door opened and Felicity entered, carrying a voluminous folder. She looked exhausted, with deep circles under her determined eyes. I have news, she announced, placing the folder on the table. We didn't sleep all night, but we succeeded. Maxwell took the documents, leafing through them quickly. His face lit up. This changes everything. What is it? Marcus asked, approaching. Catherine Oliveira is not who she claims to be, Felicity explained. Her real name is Caroline Oliveira de Souza, from Chester. She has a history of relationships with wealthy men and problems with children. Marcus picked up an old newspaper photo that showed a younger Catherine with different hair beside a middle-aged man. The headline read, Businessman accuses fiancé of assaulting daughter. Case dismissed due to lack of evidence. 2 years later, she appears in Bath, already as Catherine. Felicity continued, showing another report. Married to a pharmaceutical executive. The marriage lasted 8 months. Her 12-year-old stepson was hospitalized twice with domestic accidents. My God, Marcus murmured, feeling nauseated. How did I not discover this before? How could I leave my daughters with this ... quotes. She's extremely careful, Felicity interrupted. She changes cities, slightly alters her name, adapts her past, and she always chooses busy men, frequent travelers, with vulnerable children. A predatory pattern, Maxwell added, studying the documents. This is gold for us. Thorne won't expect a counterattack of this magnitude. There's more, Felicity said, taking a USB drive from her pocket. A former employee of the mansion, John, the gardener Catherine fired, kept records. Audio recordings of the disciplinary sessions with the girls. Marcus hesitated. I don't know if I can listen to that. You don't need to, Felicity assured him. I've already transcribed everything. It's disturbing, but undeniable as proof of systematic psychological abuse. Maxwell stood up, animated. With this, we not only secure custody of the girls, but can also open a criminal case against her. Marcus sank into a chair, assimilating the enormity of the situation. How could he have been so blind, so naive? His daughters had almost paid the ultimate price for his negligence. There's something else we should consider, Maxwell said, more seriously. Thorne will attack Felicity personally. He'll suggest an involvement between you two. A conspiracy. Marcus looked at Felicity, who met his gaze without hesitation. There was something in the determination of that simple woman, with her unbranded clothes and worn car, that impressed him deeply. Let him try, Marcus replied. I know integrity when I see it, and I know who is truly fighting for my daughters. Felicity's phone rang, interrupting the moment. She answered, and her face paled. What? When? My God, we're coming. What happened? Marcus asked, alarmed. Catherine appeared at Hope House half an hour ago, with a preliminary court order and police officers. She's demanding to see the girls. When Marcus, Felicity, and Maxwell arrived at Hope House, they found a small commotion. 2 police cars parked in front, curious onlookers on the pavement, some TV cameras. Catherine had turned what should have been a discreet procedure into a media spectacle. In the shelter's reception, she was arguing with the director, a white-haired lady with a firm expression. Beside Catherine, Martin Thorne gesticulated, brandishing an official document. 2 police officers watched, visibly uncomfortable. It's my right to see my stepdaughters, Catherine exclaimed, artificial tears glistening in her perfect eyes. I'm the only mother they've known in the last 2 years. The director remained impassive. The court order allows for a supervised visit, not the removal of the girls. And they refuse to see you. They're children. They can't decide that. Marcus advanced, confronting his ex-wife. You've caused enough damage, Catherine. Or should I call you Caroline? Her face froze for a second before her mask of indignation returned to place. What are you talking about? Is this another one of your desperate tricks? Thorne tried to intervene, but Maxwell was already beside Marcus, handing a folder to the court officer who accompanied the police. New evidence, officer, including about the lady's true identity and her history with other children. The officer quickly examined the documents, his face hardening. Catherine noticed the change in atmosphere and changed tactics. This is a conspiracy, she screamed, turning to the cameras that were beginning to film from outside. They're trying to separate me from the children I love. Marcus Forrester is using his money and power to manipulate the system. Thorne realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, tried to calm his client. "Mrs. Forrester, please, let's resolve this in court, not in the media." But Catherine was beyond control. She advanced into the corridor leading to the rooms, determined to reach the girls. One of the police officers stopped her, holding her arm. "Madam, you cannot proceed without authorization. Take your hands off me," she screamed, struggling. "Do you know who I am? Who my husband is?" At that moment, a door opened at the end of the corridor. Louisa appeared, holding her younger sister's hand. Her eyes, once dulled by fear, now shone with determination. Despite her fragile body, there was a new strength in her posture. "We don't want to go with her," she declared, her childish voice echoing in the silent corridor. "She's not our mother. Our mother is gone. And she, ... she pointed at Catherine, ... hurt us a lot." Catherine changed instantly. Her face softened into a maternal expression, her voice mellifluous. "Daddy, put ideas into your heads. I know you're confused, but I love you. I always have. Let's go home, shall we? I bought you beautiful presents." Eleanor hid behind her sister, visibly trembling. Louisa remained firm. "You said no one would believe us, that we were liars, that Daddy didn't want us anymore." Catherine took a step forward, still smiling, but a dangerous glint formed in her eyes. "Louisa, darling, you're confused. Remember how disobedient you were, how you needed discipline." "Discipline?" Louisa pulled up her sleeve, revealing yellowish marks on her wrists. "Is this discipline?" A murmur ran through the room. The court officer signaled to the police, who approached Catherine. Thorne, realizing the imminent catastrophe, attempted one last intervention. "Gentlemen, this proves nothing. Children get hurt playing, and they are easily manipulated by adults with specific agendas." "I have proof," Louisa declared, surprising everyone. She took a small object from her pocket, a digital voice recorder. Felicity approached, confused. "Louisa, what is that?" "Auntie Zelma gave it to me before she left. She said to hide it well, that it would help one day." The girl pressed the play button, and Catherine's chilling voice filled the room. "Do you think your father cares? He chose me, not you. If you tell your lies, he'll send you to a boarding school. Or worse, ungrateful children like you end up in orphanages." There was a shocked pause. Catherine stared at the small recorder as if it were a venomous snake. Thorne dropped his briefcase, momentarily speechless. The recording continued. "No dinner again today. Perhaps that way you'll learn not to defy me. And if you cry, I'll lock you in the closet. Understood?" It was undeniably Catherine's voice, without the artificial sweetness, revealing the cruelty she hid. "Turn that off," she ordered, advancing towards Louisa. But the police stopped her. Louisa looked directly at Catherine, years of fear transformed into childish courage. "You said no one would believe us, but you were wrong." The room plunged into a heavy silence, broken only by Eleanor's crying, now in Marques's arms. Catherine, realizing she had lost, stared at everyone with pure hatred. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she hissed, before the police escorted her out, followed by a visibly shaken Thorne. When the door closed, Felicity approached Louisa, kneeling in front of her. "You kept this all this time?" The girl nodded, tears finally streaming down her brave face. "Auntie Zelma said the truth always wins in the end. We just need to be strong until then." Marcus hugged his two daughters, his body trembling with contained emotion. Over their heads, he met Felicity's gaze, a look of understanding, complicity, and promise. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, the truth had finally begun to triumph over Catherine's carefully constructed lies. And for Louisa and Eleanor, it was the first step in a long journey of healing. The Royal Courts of Justice in central London was exceptionally busy that Monday. Journalists clustered at the entrance, cameras pointed at the imposing building's double doors. The Forrester case had captured media attention, a billionaire businessman against his young and beautiful wife. Accusations of child abuse, secret recordings, all the elements of a drama worthy of a TV series. On the 15th floor, in the family court 3rd Division chamber, Marcus awaited with Maxwell. They had arrived an hour earlier to avoid the press. Dressed in a discreet navy blue suit, Marcus seemed to have aged years in the past few weeks. His eyes, once lively and confident, now revealed the weight of guilt and concern. "Remember," Maxwell instructed, "Judge Alistair is a traditionalist. He values family structure above all else. We need to show that you are committed to the girl's upbringing." Marcus nodded, distracted. His thoughts were with Louisa and Eleanor, who remained at Hope House under judicial protection. After the incident with the recorder, the judge had issued a restraining order against Catherine, prohibiting her from approaching the girls until the hearing. "Thorne will play dirty," Maxwell continued. "He'll try to turn this into a common marital dispute, minimizing the evidence of abuse. He'll claim you neglected the family by traveling for so long that you left your wife overburdened. And isn't it true?" Marcus murmured, remorse evident in his voice. "I left my daughters for 3 months. I entrusted them to a stranger." "Don't blame yourself," Felicity intervened, having just entered the room. "Predators like Catherine are masters of manipulation. Your knight's the first father to be deceived. Nor will you be the last." Felicity had become a constant presence in Marcus's and his daughters' lives. She visited the girls daily at Hope House, accompanied them to therapy sessions, and ensured they received adequate medical attention to regain lost weight and heal the physical and emotional scars left by Catherine. "Are the girls prepared?" Marcus asked, concerned. Felicity smiled, trying to convey confidence. The judge agreed to hear them privately in his chambers without Catherine's presence. "The judicial psychologist will be present." They're nervous but determined. The room door opened again, and Robert entered hastily, holding a folder. His face revealed agitation. "I found something," he announced, placing the folder on the table. "We've been investigating Catherine's finances, as you suggested." Maxwell opened the folder, examining the documents quickly. His eyes widened behind his thick-rimmed glasses. "This is ... extremely revealing. What is it?" Marcus asked, approaching. Robert pointed to a series of bank statements. "Catherine has been moving significant sums since she married you. Regular transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands, all coinciding with the days you traveled for business." "Embezzlement?" Felicity questioned, studying the documents. "Not just that," Robert explained. "We found a similar pattern in her previous cases. In Chester and Bath, she also made substantial transfers during her marriages. It seems her modus operandi includes not only child abuse, but also misappropriation of funds." Marcus sat down, stunned. "She was stealing from me all this time, and preparing a strategic exit," Maxwell added. "She'd probably wait a few more months, provoke a marital crisis, and then file for divorce with a generous settlement, having already secured a secret financial cushion. The girls were just ... obstacles to her." Marcus's voice faltered. Felicity placed her hand on his shoulder in a gesture of support. "Some people are incapable of empathy, Mr. Forrester. For Catherine, your daughters represented competition for her attention and resources. It wasn't personal. It was purely calculating. Before they could discuss further, a court officer entered the room. "Judge Alistair is ready. The hearing will begin in 5 minutes." The courtroom was packed. In addition to the lawyers and directly involved parties, representatives from the Crown Prosecution Service and the London Child Protection Services occupied the front rows. Opposite Marcus, Catherine awaited with Martin Thorne and 2 auxiliary lawyers. She was impeccably dressed in a light grey ensemble, conservative enough for a courtroom, but still highlighting her youthful beauty. Her face displayed the perfect expression of dignified suffering. Judge Alistair, a 60-year-old man with white hair and an austere expression, entered the room. Everyone rose in respect. Case number 4721, 2023, protection order and custody of minors Louisa Forrester, 10 years old, and Eleanor Forrester, 7 years old. The judge adjusted his glasses, looking to both sides of the room. "This case has come to my attention under unusual circumstances. We have serious accusations of child abuse against Mrs. Catherine Forrester and equally serious evidence. Before proceeding, I would like to hear from the parties." Thorne was the first to speak, his grave and confident voice echoing through the room. "Your Honor, we are facing a classic case of parental alienation. My client, a dedicated wife, accepted the difficult mission of raising 2 children traumatized by the loss of their biological mother. She implemented necessary rules and boundaries, only to be unjustly accused when she tried to establish discipline." The lawyer walked slowly around the room, gesticulating. The supposed with evidence was obtained in a questionable manner. Social worker Felicity Carter acted precipitately, removing the children without following proper protocol. And why? Because she has a prior personal relationship with Mr. Forrester. A murmur ran through the room. Catherine kept her eyes downcast, the image of the wronged wife. As for the recordings, Thorne continued, they were clearly manipulated. Phrases taken out of context, recorded during moments of normal stress that any mother would face. And the marks on minor Louisa's arms. "Children get hurt playing, Your Honor. Any parent knows that." Thorne returned to his seat beside Catherine, who cast him a grateful look, a small tear running down her perfectly made-up face. Maxwell rose next, his more sober approach contrasting with Thorne's theatricality. "Your Honor, the facts speak for themselves. Minors Louisa and Eleanor Forrester were found in a state of malnutrition and social isolation. They displayed marks of physical restraint on their wrists and ankles. They had been deprived of school, adequate food, and contact with the outside world." Maxwell gestured, and Robert distributed folders to those present. "We have attached detailed medical reports, testimonies from former household staff, and evidence of a behavioral pattern by Mrs. Catherine Forrester, or should I say, Caroline Oliveira de Souza, in previous relationships." Catherine visibly stiffened, her gaze meeting Thorne's in silent alarm. "Furthermore," Maxwell continued, "we presented evidence of misappropriation of financial resources, suggesting that Mrs. Forrester's interest in the family was never genuine, but part of a premeditated scheme." Judge Alistair leafed through the presented documents, his expression unchanged. After a few minutes of tense silence, he addressed Felicity. "Miss Carter, I would like to hear your justification for the removal of the minors without prior judicial authorization." Felicity rose. "Your Honor, the Children and Young Persons Act provides for immediate intervention in cases of imminent risk. The minors showed clear signs of continuous physical and emotional abuse. The decision was made based on my 15 years of experience and the conviction that any delay could result in irreversible harm, and regarding the accusation of a prior relationship with Mr. Forrester, a distortion of the facts. I participated in a public meeting about a housing project in which Mr. Forrester was involved as an investor, along with 10 other professionals. I have the minutes of that meeting, which proves the strictly professional nature of the interaction. Thorne rose, interrupting. Your Honor, with all due respect, Miss Carter is sidestepping the issue. She acted with undue haste, influenced by her prejudice against stepmothers and her sympathy for Mr. Forrester. Prejudice? Felicity maintained her composure, but her eyes flashed. Your Honor, my only prejudice is against those who harm children. And regarding that, I am guilty. I will never apologize for prioritizing the well-being of minors over bureaucratic formalities or adult sensitivities. Judge Alistair sighed, closing his folder. Given the extraordinary circumstances of this case, I have decided to hear the minors themselves. Not in open court, but in my chambers, with only the judicial psychologist, Dr. Camilla Stone, present. Your Honor, children are easily influenced. Immediately. My client, as a maternal figure, should be present to give them reassurance. Your objection is noted, Dr. Thorne, the judge replied dryly. But considering the accusations of abuse, Mrs. Forrester's presence could inhibit their testimonies. My decision stands. Catherine leaned in, whispering something to Thorne, who reluctantly nodded. The hearing is adjourned for 1 hour, the judge announced, rising. The minors are already waiting in my chambers. The hour of waiting was excruciating for Marcus. He paced the courthouse corridor, unable to stay still. Maxwell tried to calm him, without success. What if the judge doesn't believe them? What if Catherine gets custody again? That won't happen, Felicity assured him, remaining calm despite the tension. Louisa and Eleanor are extraordinarily brave children, and the truth has a way of making itself heard, even through the youngest voices. Across the corridor, Catherine spoke in a low voice with Thorne. Occasionally, she cast glances in Marcus's direction, glances that oscillated between icy hatred and something akin to cruel amusement. To her, all of this seemed like a game, a chess match in which children were merely pawns. Finally, the judge's chamber's door opened. Dr. Camilla Stone, a middle-aged psychologist with a gentle expression, the girls led Louisa ran to their father back into the corridor, completely ignoring Catherine, who tried to approach them with a forced maternal expression. How was it? Marcus asked, kneeling to hug them. We told the truth, Louisa simply replied. Only the truth. The psychologist approached Felicity. Incredible children, she commented in a low voice. So articulate, Judge Alistair rarely gets emotional, but today, well, let's just say he needed a few minutes to compose himself before calling you back. A court officer appeared in the corridor. The judge is ready to resume the hearing. When everyone returned to the room, the atmosphere had changed. Judge Alistair seemed different, his austere expression replaced by something deeper, more human. After hearing the testimonies of the minors, he began, and analyzing the evidence presented, I am ready to issue my preliminary decision. Thorne rose, attempting one last intervention. Your Honor, before deciding, I ask you to consider the impact that the separation from the maternal figure will have on the children. Despite possible disagreements, my client established a significant bond with the minors. The judge looked directly at Thorne, not hiding his displeasure. Dr. Thorne, Bond? What your clients described was not a bond, it was systematic terror. One have been in this court for 25 years, and rarely have I heard such disturbing accounts. Catherine blanched, realizing the situation was completely escaping her control. Therefore, the judge continued, I grant full temporary custody of minors Louisa and Eleanor Forrester to their father, Mr. Marcus Forrester, on the condition that they continue to receive psychological support. Catherine Forrester, Mrs., is prohibited from approaching the children within a distance of 300 meters. Additionally, I order the preventive freezing of the couple's joint assets until the conclusion of the investigation into the allegations of misappropriation of funds. Thorne began to protest, but the judge interrupted him with a firm gesture. Furthermore, I am forwarding evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service for criminal investigation against Mrs. Catherine Forrester for child abuse, fraud, and identity theft, given the proven alteration of identity with the intent to conceal her past. Catherine stood up abruptly, finally losing her composure. This is absurd. It's a conspiracy. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of. In fact, Mrs. Forrester, the judge replied with chilling calm, now we know exactly who you are. And that is why my decision is so clear. Hearing adjourned. With a bang of the gavel, the judge withdrew, leaving the room in a charged silence that was quickly broken by Catherine. This isn't over, she hissed, staring at Marcus with pure hatred. Not by a long shot. Thorne tried to calm her, leading her out, but she broke free, approaching Marcus with a raised finger. You'll regret this, all of you, especially your precious daughters. Two court security guards immediately approached. Madam, please leave. Catherine straightened her posture, regaining some of her staged dignity. She adjusted her hair with a studied gesture and left the room, followed by a visibly embarrassed Thorne. Louisa and Eleanor, who had remained in the adjacent room during the hearing, ran in when the officer called them. Their faces lit up upon seeing their father's relieved expression. Is it over? Eleanor asked, hopeful. Marcus hugged his daughters, feeling the weight of the world lift from his shoulder. Yes, my love, this part is over. Now, let's start anew. Felicity observed the scene with a discreet smile. Her official work was concluded, but something told her that her connection with the Forrester family was just beginning. As they left the courthouse through the back, avoiding the press, Marcus approached Felicity. How can I thank you? You've saved my daughters. You've saved our family. Felicity shook her head. I just did my job, Mr. Forrester. Marcus, please. I think after all this, we can use first names. She smiled, nodding. Marcus, then. I don't know what we're going to do now. The girls can't go back to the mansion. There are too many memories there. And they need stability, a new beginning. One step at a time, Felicity advised. They have you. That's what matters most right now. Louisa, always observant, tugged at Felicity's sleeve. You'll visit us, won't you? Even when it's not our case anymore. The social worker knelt her, getting down to the girls' Whenever level. You want, I promise. In the car park, as they prepared to leave, none of them noticed the dark car parked at a distance, nor Catherine's silhouette observing through the tinted windows, her face contorted into an expression that little resembled the beautiful and sophisticated woman everyone knew. Enjoy your victory, she murmured to herself. It won't last long. 3 months had passed since the court's decision. Autumn painted London with golden hues, bringing a cooler breeze. In a single-story house in Richmond, surrounded by trees and a flourishing garden, Louisa and Eleanor played on the lawn, their laughter echoing through the air. The new Forrester home bore no resemblance to the ostentatious Kensington mansion. Marcus had chosen a smaller, more welcoming home, close to a park and an excellent school. Each girl had her personalized room, filled with books, and, in Eleanor's case, a new piano held a prominent place in the living room. On the veranda, sitting in a rocking chair, Marcus watched his daughters with a serene smile. Slowly they were becoming children again, running, laughing, arguing over trifles. The transformation had not been instant or easy. Both still had occasional nightmares, moments of insecurity, small setbacks. But constant therapy and the security of a loving environment worked wonders. The gate opened, and Felicity entered, carrying a covered basket. "Auntie Fowl," Eleanor shouted, running to hug her. Louisa followed right behind. "Did you bring what you promised?" the elder asked. Felicity laughed. "Calm down, little sweet tooths. Yes, I brought the chocolate fudge balls. But first, show me how you're doing with your lessons." The girls ran inside, looking for their notebooks. They had returned to school 2 months ago, not to the elite St. Paul's International, but to a constructive school that respected each child's pace. Marcus stood up to greet his visitor. "Punctual as ever," he commented, with a smile that lit up his tired eyes. In recent months, Felicity had become a constant presence in the family's life, initially as an official supervisor for visits, then as support in the adaptation Her weekly
process,
visits were eagerly awaited
and gradually
by
everyone
as a friend.
During snack time on the terrace, while the girls proudly showed off their schoolwork, Marcus's phone rang. "That was Maxwell," he explained after hanging up. "It seems Catherine was seen in Edinburgh last week." Felicity immediately became alert. "Do you think she poses any danger?" Maxwell says no. "The restraining order is in effect, and she would be arrested immediately if she tried to approach." But still, his worried gaze turned to his daughters. "We'll increase precautions," Felicity decided. "I can speak with some colleagues, ensure the school is on alert." The following Monday, Marcus waited at the school exit. He checked his watch, 3:30 p.m., dismissal time. The first students began to leave, but several minutes passed with no sign of Louisa and Eleanor. He approached the coordinator. "My daughters haven't come out yet." The woman consulted her clipboard, confused. "They were released early. Your wife came to pick them up about an hour ago." Marcus's world collapsed. "My wife? I don't have a wife. I'm separated." The coordinator blanched. She had authorization, showed documents, said it was a family emergency. Marcus was already dialing the police, his heart pounding. Description: quick, tall, dark hair, very elegant. She said she was Catherine Forrester. At the police station. Marcus's despair contrasted with the efficiency of the police. Incident report, descriptions, photos, everything was quickly recorded. "We've activated the Amber Alert," Chief Inspector Scott explained. "The information has already been sent to all police stations, airports, and borders." Felicity worked on another front, checking possible hiding places with the help of colleagues from the London Child Protection Services. The school had copies of the documents prohibiting Catherine from approaching the girls, she said, frustrated. How could they have released them? "Forged documents," the chief inspector explained, "extremely well made. And apparently, she had been observing your routine for weeks. It wasn't an impulsive kidnapping, it was methodically planned." Around 9 p.m., Felicity's phone rang. It was John, the former gardener, informing her that he had seen Catherine in Windsor, entering an isolated country house. The police operation was swift and precise.
In less than 5 minutes after arriving at the location, confirmation came over the radio: miners safe. Suspect apprehended without resistance. In the simple living room of the country house, Louisa and Eleanor were sitting on a sofa, scared but unharmed. Upon seeing their father, their faces transformed from fear to joy. "Daddy." Marcus hugged them tightly, tears streaming down his face. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you?" "We're okay," Louisa assured him. "She said it was a surprise outing, that you knew. But we didn't believe her. We were scared," Eleanor added. "But Louisa said you would find us. That you would always find us." 2 weeks after the rescue, life was trying to return to normal. The girls had resumed therapy, now with more frequent sessions. The school had implemented new security protocols. It was a sunny Sunday in June, and the family was gathered in the garden for a special lunch, along with friends who had become a protective circle. Robert, Maxwell, Chief Inspector Scott, and even John, who had helped locate the girls. "The news is good," Maxwell commented. "Catherine will remain in custody throughout the process, and 3 families have already formalized complaints against her in other cities." Marcus watched his daughters playing with the dog they had adopted, a loving, mixed breed named Popcorn. Despite the traumatic events, they showed surprising resilience. When the guests said goodbye, Marcus finally asked the question he had been rehearsing: "What would you think about staying? Not just today, but ... always." Felicity stopped what she was doing. Marcus ... "Not it early, that we're still recovering. But life is too short to postpone happiness. And you're already part of this family. The girls ... they'd love it," he completed. "In fact, it was their idea. Louisa asked me yesterday when I was going to really ask Auntie fell out on a date." Before she could answer, Louisa and Eleanor ran into the kitchen. "Say yes, Auntie Fell," Eleanor pleaded, clinging to Felicity's leg. "Please," Louisa added, her eyes pleading. Felicity looked at the 3 expectant faces, a family that had appeared in her life through pain, but that now offered so much joy. "Yes," she finally replied. "Yes to all of you." The girls erupted in shouts of joy. Marcus joined the collective hug, enveloping everyone in his arms. Through the window, the sun gilded the garden, where Louisa's sunflowers stood tall. Like those flowers, the Forrester family had found their way to the light after a period of shadows. Felicity had looked at those children, no longer the frightened girls from before, but strong and courageous young ones. She looked at Marcus, who had learned to be not just a provider, but truly a father, and she knew she had found her place. The path wouldn't always be easy. There would be difficult days, painful memories, fears to confront, but they would do it together as a family, built not by blood, but by love, courage, and the determination to create a home where fear no longer had a place. Somewhere distant, behind the bars of a state prison, Catherine awaited trial, her plans undone. But in that welcoming Richmond home, protected by love and courage, life went on. Imperfect, challenging, but full of possibilities and rebuilt smiles. End of story, dear listeners. We hope Louisa and Alinus's story has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link on the left. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the bonds that unite us. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to seeing you in the comments.